Candide, first published in 1759, is one of the most famous works of the Enlightenment philosopher Voltaire. The novella is a satirical take on the optimism prevalent in Voltaire's time, particularly the idea, championed by philosophers like Leibniz, that we live in the best of all possible worlds. Through the misadventures of its naive protagonist, Candide, the novella critiques this philosophy and explores the cruelty, absurdity, and chaos of human existence. The work is known for its sharp wit, humor, and deep skepticism. It is a critique not only of philosophical optimism, but also of organized religion, war, colonialism, and social inequality. Despite its philosophical undertones, Candide is also a fast-paced, often absurd, and highly entertaining story. Candide's early life and the philosophy of optimism. The story begins with Candide, a young man living in the castle of the Baron of Thundertentronckh in Westphalia, Germany. Candide is a simple and good-hearted youth, raised under the teachings of Pangloss, a philosopher who espouses the idea that everything is for the best, and that the world is the best it could possibly be. This doctrine of optimism is key to Candide's worldview, and he believes, as Pangloss teaches, that everything that happens, no matter how bad, ultimately serves a higher purpose. Candide's peaceful life is disrupted when he falls in love with Cunigond, the Baron's daughter. After they are caught sharing a kiss, Candide is expelled from the castle, setting off the chain of events that will take him on a journey across continents and through a series of disasters. The disasters begin the war, earthquake, and Inquisition. After his expulsion, Candide is conscripted into the Bulgarian army and experiences the horrors of war firsthand. He witnesses the brutal violence between the Bulgarians and their enemies, realizing that war is far from the noble enterprise it is often portrayed to be. Candide escapes the army and flees to Holland, where he meets Pangloss again, now a beggar ravaged by syphilis. Despite his physical suffering, Pangloss continues to insist that all is for the best. Pangloss informs Candide that Cunigond's family has been slaughtered by Bulgarian soldiers. The two men then travel to Lisbon, where they arrive just in time to experience the devastating earthquake of 1755, which killed tens of thousands of people. Instead of questioning his philosophy, Pangloss insists that the earthquake is just another necessary event in the best of all possible worlds. In Lisbon, Candide and Pangloss are arrested by the Inquisition, as Pangloss's views are deemed heretical. Pangloss is hanged, and Candide is flogged, though he eventually escapes. The sequence of disasters that befall Candide challenges his belief in Pangloss's optimistic philosophy, though he continues to hold on to it. Candide reunites with Cunigond. Candide soon learns that Cunigond is alive, though she has suffered greatly. She is now the mistress of two men, a wealthy Jew and a high-ranking inquisitor. Candide kills both men in a fit of jealousy and flees with Cunigond and her old servant, the old woman, who reveals that she, too, has suffered numerous misfortunes. The old woman was once a princess, but she was captured by pirates, sold into slavery, and mutilated. Despite her tragic life, she, like Candide, persists in her belief that things could always be worse. As Candide, Cunigond, and the old woman travel, they continue to encounter catastrophe after catastrophe. They leave Europe and head for South America, hoping to escape their past misfortunes. South America and the myth of El Dorado. In South America, Candide and Cunigond seek refuge in Paraguay, where they meet Cunigond's brother who has become a Jesuit priest. Candide, hoping to marry Cunigond, is shocked when her brother forbids the match, claiming that Candide, as a commoner, is unworthy. In anger, Candide kills him and flees with his valet, Cacambo. Candide and Cacambo eventually stumble upon El Dorado, a utopian kingdom where gold and jewels are so abundant that they are used for everyday purchases. In El Dorado, there is no war, no religious persecution, and no inequality, just peace, prosperity, and happiness. Despite the perfection of this society, Candide decides to leave, as he still longs for Cunigond and feels that he must return to rescue her. Candide and Cacambo take with them great wealth, but soon after leaving El Dorado, they are cheated, robbed, and forced to give up nearly all of their fortune. The perfect world they found in El Dorado remains an elusive ideal, one that is incompatible with the greed and corruption of the outside world. Europe and further disillusionment. After many more adventures, Candide eventually makes his way back to Europe, where he reunites with Pangloss, who miraculously survived his execution. They travel to Venice, where Candide meets numerous other characters who have similarly suffered from the world's injustices. Among them is Martin, a cynical philosopher who argues that the world is not the best of all possible worlds, but rather one of the worst. Martin's worldview provides a stark contrast to Pangloss's optimism. Despite his vast wealth and the reunion with Cunigond, Candide grows increasingly disillusioned. Cunigond, once beautiful, has lost her looks and is now harsh and demanding. Candide's idealized love for her begins to fade, and he starts to question whether all of his struggles were truly worth it. The final lesson: we must cultivate our garden. By the end of the novella, Candide, Pangloss, Martin, and Cunigond have settled on a small farm in Turkey. Here, they live a simple, modest life, though each character remains shaped by their past experiences. Pangloss continues to cling to his optimism, but Candide, after all his suffering, has come to reject this philosophy. Instead, he concludes that the best way to live is to focus on practical work and personal responsibility. In the famous final line of the novella, Candide tells his companions, "We must cultivate our garden." This statement reflects Candide's ultimate realization that it is better to focus on improving the immediate circumstances of one's life than to speculate about abstract philosophical ideas. The garden becomes a metaphor for personal growth and the practical efforts needed to survive and thrive in a world that is often chaotic and cruel. Themes and motifs. Philosophical optimism. The central theme of Candide is the critique of philosophical optimism, particularly the ideas of Leibniz, who argued that the world was the best it could possibly be because it was created by a benevolent God. Through Pangloss, Voltaire satirizes this view by showing how absurd it becomes when confronted with the reality of human suffering. Despite the numerous tragedies and horrors they witness, war, natural disasters, executions, and slavery, Pangloss, and initially Candide continue to insist that everything is for the best. However, as the novella progresses, Candide's faith in this philosophy is increasingly challenged. By the end of the story, he has come to see that Pangloss's optimism is an intellectual exercise that does little to alleviate the actual pain and suffering of the world. Instead, Candide adopts a more pragmatic worldview, focusing on concrete actions rather than abstract beliefs. Suffering and injustice. Throughout Candide, Voltaire presents a world filled with suffering, cruelty, and injustice. Almost every character endures terrible misfortunes, often without any clear reason or justification. War is depicted as brutal and senseless, with both sides committing atrocities. The Inquisition is shown to be a cruel and hypocritical institution that punishes people for holding unorthodox beliefs. Slavery, corruption, and greed are also rampant, reflecting the dark side of human nature. Voltaire uses these depictions to criticize not only philosophical optimism, but also the institutions and systems that perpetuate human suffering. Organized religion, in particular, is a frequent target of Voltaire's satire, as he portrays religious figures as hypocritical and corrupt. The absurdity of the world. One of the most striking aspects of Candide is its portrayal of the absurdity of the world. The character's misfortunes often seem random and disconnected from any sense of moral order or justice. Voltaire's depiction of events such as the Lisbon earthquake, the violence of war, and the cruelty of the Inquisition serves to highlight the randomness of life and the lack of any clear divine plan. This absurdity is central to Voltaire's critique of optimism. The idea that everything happens for a reason and that all events ultimately serve the greater good, is shown to be not only naive but also dangerous. By clinging to this belief, characters like Pangloss and Candide are blinded to the reality of the world around them and are unable to take meaningful action to improve their circumstances. The search for happiness. At its core, Candide is also a story about the search for happiness. Candide's journey takes him across the world in pursuit of a better life, and he frequently believes that happiness is just out of reach, whether it is found in love, wealth, or the ideal society of El Dorado. However, each time he believes he has found happiness, it slips away, and he is left disillusioned. Ultimately, Candide's realization that happiness comes from practical work and self-sufficiency reflects Voltaire's belief that true contentment is found not in abstract philosophy or material wealth, but in simple, everyday tasks. The final lesson of the novella is that we must focus on cultivating our own garden, both literally and metaphorically, if we are to find peace and satisfaction in life. Conclusion. Candide remains one of the most enduring works of the Enlightenment, both for its sharp wit and its deep philosophical insights. Through the character of Candide and his journey, Voltaire exposes the flaws in the optimistic philosophy that dominated his time and offers a more pragmatic, human-centered approach to life. The novella's biting satire, fast-paced plot, and vivid characters continue to captivate readers, making it a timeless work of literature. In the end, Candide's simple conclusion that we must cultivate our garden speaks to the importance of personal responsibility and practical action in the face of life's uncertainties. Voltaire's message is clear. Rather than relying on abstract ideals or waiting for a better world, we must focus on improving the world we have, even if it is far from perfect. Created for Squeeze That Book channel. Please subscribe to follow new videos, and leave a comment with your thoughts about the book.